Hey guys, welcome back to the latest edition of the Sony Ericsson Throwback review series here on the Xperia blog. First of all, thanks a lot for the tremendous amount of comments that we got on the last couple of reviews that we did. So with that, let's move over to today's mobile phones you want to have a look at. It's going to be the K750, which you can see here. We're also going to have a look at the S700, S710. And its smaller sibling, the W550 or W600. And the reason, as I just mentioned, why we want to talk about this phone is the K750 was the first mobile phone in the market that introduced autofocus for its camera. So it was really, Sony Ericsson was one of the first brands, or the first brand, that introduced that concept. And it's also, maybe not considering T610, but the K750 definitely, along with the K700, was the first phone that introduced Sony Ericsson's dual front design, where you have the mobile phone kind of design on the front and the camera kind of like design on the back. Also the dedicated camera button here. Two-way button. I'm just gonna have a quick look at that as the first thing. Just in the beginning, apologies for the strange kind of user interface I'm going through later on. That was back when I was still had the time to fiddle around with custom firmwares, etc. So there was one firmware that was obviously kind of made for to look like a Mac OS. So, and I didn't really bother or have the time or the correct firmware to flash it back. You can also see it runs the Walkman kind of theme. That's the reason, or the reason for this is because with the W800, which was released slightly after the K750, the Walkman kind of theme was introduced. The phones, the K750 and the W800, were kind of similar hardware-wise, and also software or firmware-wise. So again, apologies for that not original look, but it was really back then when I was tinkering a lot with kind of different themes and firmwares. So let's move on to the camera. Nicely covered with this this cover. It's as you can see here. Let's try if I can see this. It's a 2 megapixel autofocus. It's mentioned here because, as I mentioned in the beginning, it was really the new thing. Autofocus functionality. And so what this introduced is, and I'm just kind of trying to get something to focus on. What this introduced is really you could push down this button halfway, like in a digital camera, and it kind of focused on whatever was in that green little thing. And just trying to get this on camera is not that easy, but I guess you get the hang of it. And then the second push kind of took the picture. So that was really new back then. That, so far the phones, the cameras on the phones that were existing had a fixed focus. So whenever you went closer or further away from objects, they might become blurry or have become blurry because you couldn't focus on them. So this was really something new. And just quickly, let's see what we have here. There was different shoot modes. Something that also was already present back then was the burst mode. So what this did is took just 4 pictures in a row. Now this didn't really make sense what I just did, because you obviously have a lot of the same pictures. But if you think about the burst modes that's available in modern smartphones, same idea. Was already present in 2005 when the K750 was introduced. So that's the camera. The user interface itself of the K750 was pretty Sony Ericsson-like. And again, apologies here for the strange kind of menu icons. But obviously at an email client there was music. As you can see here, the Walkman app, as I mentioned, was not originally on the K750, but it's sibling the W800. I don't think I have any music on here, so let's skip that. There were things like, I don't even know what the Finder means. Oh, the file manager, okay. You know, themes were available. Obviously a browser was included. That was not really the new thing back then. A radio, I don't really remember if that was one of the first phones that had that, but definitely also something pretty new. And it won't work because I have to put in a headset. Oops. Phone was equipped with Bluetooth. It has an infrared port on the top here, as you can see. And I would say that's pretty much it. So let's move on to the next phone I want to show you guys today, and that's the S700 or S710. And again, the reason why I'm showing this is because what was kind of new or unusual then was actually the swivel design. A couple of other companies, I believe, such as Motorola, already had this or came up with this at around the same time. This was also released in 2005. So kind of a new design next to the clamshell phones. So Sony Ericsson called this Swivel Design. This phone as well, next to the design, also had this dual front design. Camera on the back, mobile phone on the front, dedicated camera button. Also was this kind of cover for the camera. This phone was equipped with a 1.3 megapixel camera. So it was not quite as the resolution was not quite as good as on the K750 with the 2 megapixels, but still quite acceptable. And it also kind of, easy access to the camera by just opening the cover. The phone itself was also standing out because of the high resolution of the screen. I believe it's around 150 pixels per inch. Nothing again compared to today's phones, but back then that was pretty good. So you still can see the different pixels on the screen, but definitely a huge step from previous phones. Again, burst mode here available as well. So this phone was also pretty camera focused. It was not the Cybershot series yet. We're gonna cover these in one of the next Throwback reviews. So we're gonna have a look at Cybershot phones that specifically introduced a brand that Sony was already using for its digital cameras. But you could see that Sony Ericsson already was going in that direction of kind of focusing on Sony brands. Walkman is one brand, the Cybershot is another brand. We're going to cover these later on in further Throwback reviews. Other than that, the phone itself, let's close this here. It was pretty bulky, considering, the open state. I mean, in the open state it was pretty long, and it was also pretty bulky, open and closed. So it had a dedicated unlock button, so you could lock it so that you couldn't do anything, but you could also unlock it again with this one. Keys, pretty much standard, again a lot of space, so it was pretty easy to use. And the phone itself, let's just have a quick look at the interface. It's, again, as I mentioned, for the K750, pretty much Sony Ericsson standard. This one is not Walkman branded, so it's just called Media Player. Supports MP3 and a couple of other formats. Again, pretty much a standard thing: calendar, SyncML, IMAP, Exchange, support, Bluetooth. There was no wireless yet, so that was something that was coming into the game later on. Infrared port as well. I think it's on this side here. What else can I show you here that's of interest? We had a look at the camera, the browser. This particular phone seems to have some kind of a branding. I'm not even sure or aware what that is, what company that is. But as you can see, a very colorful screen, 256,000 colors. Also a pretty well, very much high-end kind of number of colors that phone displays back then in 2005 were able to offer. And that's about it for this. I can just to complete the picture here. This is a prototype of the Sony Ericsson codename Ellen, dubbed later on W550 or W600. I'm not even entirely sure anymore. That has kind of the same design. It was later on in the final version. There was the Walkman branding over here, but you can see similar kind of design principles. So the swivel design, pretty bulky as well. The camera didn't have a cover. It was also a 1.3 megapixel camera. And it had basically, as you can see here, back and front speakers, which is was introduced with the Walkman, in the Walkman area as well. Also has the hardware lock unlock button. Has a hardware play and pause button for the music player, and it had on top these not on screen but beside the screen buttons for Sony Ericsson. Was that kind of marketing as for gaming purposes, so you could hold your phone like this and you had like at least four buttons around the display. Other than that, pretty similar to the S710, a little bit smaller. And that's all we wanted to show you today. Thanks a lot for watching. In the next episode, which is going to be released in about 2 weeks time, we're going to cover the CyberShot series, as I mentioned before. So we're going to have a look at the C905. We're going to have, which is a released phone, but we're also going to have a look at the very much unknown CyberShot prototype that was supposed to introduce optical zoom, 3x optical zoom. We're going to have a look at this device. So looking forward to see you back then. Until in 2 weeks, have a good time. Thanks, bye-bye.